say Wisconsin looks peaceful, lakes shining like mirrors, forests breathing in silence. But under that calm surface, something else stirs, from crumbling asylums and forgotten mansions to hotels where guests hear footsteps from rooms long vacant. Every corner of this quiet Midwest state hides a story whispered in the dark, stories of love, death, and things that refuse to rest. Tonight, we'll follow those whispers into the shadows and uncover the 15 most haunted places in Wisconsin. Keep your lights on, because some doors, once opened, don't close again. One, Summerwind Lamont Mansion, West Bay Lake, Vilas County. They say the wind never truly dies over West Bay Lake. It whispers through the pines like a memory that refuses to fade. Hidden deep in the forests of Vilas County once stood Summerwind, a grand mansion whose walls seem to breathe with secrets. Built in the early 1900s, it was meant to be a lakeside paradise. But soon after the Lamont family moved in, paradise began to rot. Doors slammed in empty rooms, shadows crawled across mirrors, and the faint sound of a piano played long after midnight, though no one in the house could play. One night, Mrs. Lamont claimed she saw a man standing in the dining room, his upper body visible, the rest fading into the floorboards. When her husband fired a gun at the apparition, the bullets passed through as if the air itself had turned to glass. Their servants fled soon after, and the Lamonts abandoned the mansion within a year. Decades later, a young couple named Arnold and Ginger Hinshaw tried to restore Summerwind, only to be driven nearly insane. Arnold began playing the organ for hours each night, claiming the spirits were teaching him. Ginger found food rotting overnight and faces staring back at her from the basement door years later. An article described paranormal investigators recording strange light orbs and disembodied voices inside the decaying ruins. Some even caught a woman's whisper calling the name Lamont. In the summer of 1988, lightning struck the mansion, burning it to the ground. Many locals believe it wasn't nature, it was something trapped within, reclaiming what was once its own. And when the wind howls across the lake at dusk, people still swear they hear faint organ music drifting over the water. Was Summerwind destroyed by fire? Or did the house finally decide to destroy itself? 2. The Pfister Hotel, Milwaukee. In the heart of downtown, Milwaukee stands a hotel so elegant that even the dead refuse to check out. The Pfister Hotel, opened in 1893, was once a symbol of luxury and progress. But beneath its chandeliers and velvet drapes, countless guests and staff whisper of things that defy reason. Elevators that stop on empty floors, cold drafts sweeping through locked rooms, and mirrors that seem to ripple as if something stirs just beyond the glass. Guests have reported waking to the sound of footsteps pacing their room, only to find no one there. Lights flicker in long hallways, and the portraits of the hotel's founder, Charles Pfister, are said to watch every passerby with quiet disapproval. Professional athletes who stay there for road games speak of radios switching on by themselves and shadows hovering over their beds. One visiting baseball player even fled in the middle of the night, claiming an invisible presence tugged at his sheets and whispered his name. Over the years, multiple travel publications and paranormal societies have documented these encounters, calling the Pfister one of America's most haunted hotels. Some psychics claim the spirit of Charles Pfister himself still roams the halls, inspecting guests and ensuring his beloved establishment remains flawless even in death. So the next time you stay at the Pfister, Listen closely when the lights dim. That soft knock at your door after midnight, will it be room service? Or the man who built the hotel, still making his rounds? Shaker's Cigar Bar, Milwaukee. Beneath the soft jazz and the haze of cigar smoke, something else lingers inside Shaker's Cigar Bar, a silence that breathes, a memory that watches. The building stands on ground that was once part of Milwaukee's old cemetery. Later, during Prohibition, it became a speakeasy and rumored brothel under mob control. The brick walls have soaked up a century of secrets, and not all of them stayed buried. Bartenders have seen glasses slide across the counter when no one is near. Guests have heard footsteps climbing the stairs after closing time, and a woman's laughter echoing from the upstairs apartment, even though that floor has been vacant for years. One former worker said she felt an icy hand on her shoulder in the basement, only to turn around and find no one there. Others describe a small, shadowy figure darting between the tables, a child spirit who supposedly died in the building long ago. A feature in a local magazine once described paranormal teams recording voices whispering names, doors opening on camera, and cold spots that appeared and vanished like breath in winter air. Shaker's now embraces its haunted reputation, hosting midnight ghost tours where visitors descend into the basement once used as a morgue during the 1930s. Some say the laughter, the whispers, the shadows, they're just echoes of the city's past. But when the lights dim and the jazz fades, even the bravest patrons admit it feels like the dead are still waiting for one last drink. Would you dare to stay until closing time and find out who else hasn't left? 4. Brumder Mansion Bed and Breakfast, Milwaukee. On a quiet, tree-lined street in Milwaukee stands the Brumder Mansion, its turrets and bay windows evoking a storybook fantasy, yet stepping inside. A hush falls that seems borrowed from another world. Built in 1910 for Frederick Brumder, the mansion's wood-paneled halls, antique chandeliers, and ornate trim speak of grandeur. But after dark, the echoes that answer your footsteps tell a different tale. Guests have awakened to the sound of a piano playing faintly in the parlor while the house is supposedly empty. One woman, staying in an upstairs room, recounted feeling heavy fingertips trace her hair while she lay in bed. She bolted upright, no one was visible, but she swore she felt breath on her neck. On a different night, another guest reported the lights in the hallway flickering, then one bulb bursting as if from shock. Though the wiring was recently inspected, a staff member once entered a supposedly locked bedroom to find a rocking chair slowly swaying. Though no current guest was booked there, local media and travel columns have run features on the Brumder Mansion, noting its reputation as one of Wisconsin's most haunted bed and breakfasts. Some paranormal tour groups include the mansion on their city ghost walks, and investigators have recorded EVP's whispers in voices too low to hear unaided and cold spots thick enough to feel like walking through water. When morning comes, the mansion again looks like a postcard from another era, elegant, serene, untouched. But by midnight, its walls remember something else. If the past still reaches out at night, will you be brave enough to become one of its guests? Five, Hotel Retlaw, Fond du Lac, nestled in the heart of Fond du Lac. Hotel Retlaw stands as a dignified echo of the past, its limestone facade and classic architecture promising elegance. But step inside after sunset, and the halls whisper of something older, something unquiet. The corridor lights hum, Footsteps tap across wooden floors when no one walks them, and shadows flicker at the edge of vision. Guests have described waking in the middle of the night to the sound of someone pacing outside their doors. They say the door handle jiggles, as though someone is trying it, then pauses. One man, staying on the 7th floor, claimed that at exactly 3:13 a.m., the lights in his hallway pulsed as though breathing. He watched from the peephole. Nothing was there, but the door across the hall cracked open by itself. Another visitor reported hearing a woman quietly sobbing in a distant room, though the hotel claimed no one was booked in that section. Furniture seems to shift in empty rooms. A painting leans at a different angle each morning. A mirror in the east wing is said to reflect a face that vanishes when anyone approaches. A travel magazine once featured Hotel Retlaw in a special on haunted lodging, noting staff who refused to work night shifts on higher floors. Paranormal investigators touring Wisconsin have recorded chilling EVPs. Leave me. Don't open in the silent corridors, as well as temperature drops so severe that breath hangs in the air. During a period of restoration, workers reported tools disappearing, cold spots in rooms they just painted, and soft knocks on walls when no one was nearby. By day, the hotel welcomes guests with warm lighting and polished floors, the kind of place you'd trust with your luggage. But after midnight, the air changes. How many spirits still wander its halls, waiting for someone to hear their sorrow? And if you peek behind your door at 3:13 now, what might be staring back? 6. The Grand Opera House, Oshkosh. You arrive before dusk at the Grand Opera House, Oshkosh, its red brick facade set against a pale sky. And already the air feels heavy old velvet curtains brushing unseen winds, footsteps echoing where no one walks. Built in 1883, this theater has stood through fire, decay, restoration, and through it all. Whispers say its stage never fell silent. As night comes, the lights dim, and a hush settles over the auditorium, broken only by your shallow breath. From backstage to the balcony, people over the years have felt presences drifting past. One staffer swears she heard the soft click of shoes pacing in a darkened corridor. Another claims to have seen a pale figure perched on the balcony watching the empty stage, vanishing when confronted. At times, an orange mist blankets the audience seating, though no fog machine runs. Ghost hunters report EVP voices murmuring names, ghostly dog barks off stage, and temperature drops so sudden you'd think you walked through a wall. Astonishingly, during a tour, a seat that had been pushed up fell down on its own, though no one touched it. A former executive director once sat alone in the dark and watched a white fog drift across the stage into the wings, vanished before he could approach. In local coverage and public records, the Grand is repeatedly named one of Oshkosh's most haunted sites. Ghost tours run through its hidden wings and basement, guiding thrill seekers past dressing rooms, balconies, and shadowed corridors. Paranormal groups have documented mysterious orbs, auditory anomalies, and sightings of a stage manager spirit still checking props even when no show is on. The theater's own seasonal haunted happenings celebrates these tales, weaving the lore into public experience. Now the velvet drapes whisper in breezes you can't see. The stage waits, silent but alive. Who still takes the spotlight when the curtains close? Could you hear a whisper in the dark, or feel a breath behind you in the wings? 7. Pabst Mansion, Milwaukee. Night falls over Milwaukee, and the tall turrets and ornate brickwork of Pabst Mansion loom like a brooding sentinel in the darkness. The air is heavy, the kind of quiet that waits, listening. Inside, polished wood, velvet drapes, and gilded frames seem too rich to belong to silence. Yet after sunset, the walls stir. Some say the spirit of Captain Frederick Pabst, the brewery magnate who once called this place home, never left. Visitors have reported flickering chandeliers, candles dislodging themselves from their holders, and strange shadows drifting through rooms with no doors leading there. One staff member preparing the parlor for an event saw a candelabra tremble, and candles pop free when they reset them. The same thing happened again. Just hours later, another curator claimed to feel eyes watching him as he repaired wallpaper, only for the gaze to vanish when he turned around. Contractors renovating the mansion say they caught a figure in overalls observing them from doorways, a face matching portraits of Pabst in the hallway. Inside, local press and ghost tour accounts. Pabst Mansion often appears among Milwaukee's most haunted. News crews interviewed museum staff, who admitted guests and volunteers report the chandeliers swaying for no reason, lights dimming and brightening of their own accord, an unexplained bell ringing echoing through halls. The mansion even offers special candlelit tours in October, where guides recount tales of spectral sightings and unnatural occurrences after dark. The polished floors reflect your flashlight's beam, and somewhere behind a heavy curtain, faint footsteps echo. Is that the Baron of Beer himself pacing his old domain? Or just a trick of shadows and when the lights flicker in the dead of night? Whose silhouette will you glimpse in the mirror? 8. Dartford Cemetery, Green Lake, when twilight seeps across the rolling lawns of Green Lake. Dartford Cemetery seems to swallow the light. Moss-covered headstones lean at odd angles, and a crypt with a cracked roof sits like a wounded sentinel among the graves. The air feels colder here, dense with unspoken stories. They say this pioneer burial ground is not as quiet as it seems. Visitors report uneasy sensations from the moment they step through the iron gate. Some feel as though invisible fingers brush their legs. Teenagers daring each other to sit on the crypt speak of a sudden shove, a force unseen knocking them from the roof. One group claimed that as they mounted the stone, one of them was sent reeling backward, landing hard below while the rest watched in horror. Others tell of a figure in full Native American garb, drifting among the stones, often identified as Chief High-Knocker, once drowned in nearby waters, now said to wander his adopted resting place. Changing epitaphs, ghostly whispers, and the laughter of unseen children have been reported under the moon. This cemetery caught broader attention when a paranormal TV show dramatized the experience of a few local teens spending Halloween night there, pushed from a mausoleum roof, startled by shadows, and hearing distant sobs. Since then, ghost hunting blogs and haunted destination sites have featured Dartford as one of Wisconsin's most haunted, citing crypt pushes, spectral guardians, and orbs drifting among the tombs. You walk down a path between graves, the wind dead still. A hush settles, and something just past your vision shifts. Did it glide between the stones? Or is your imagination at play? If you sat on that cracked crypt tonight, would you feel a hand at your back or see something rising behind you in the darkness? Mats 9. The old Glenbeulah School, Glenbeulah, on the edge of a quiet Wisconsin village, stands the crumbling shell of the old Glenbeulah School. So, its windows long shattered, its corridors hollow as a memory. Built in the late 1800s, this two-story brick school once echoed with children's laughter until tragedy silenced it. Locals whisper about a fire that swept through the upper floor, or a student who fell down the main stairwell during recess. Whatever truly happened, the building never felt the same afterward. Those who have dared to enter describe hearing faint piano notes coming from the music room, though the piano itself has been missing for decades. Others swear they've seen a figure of a small boy standing by the window at dusk, his outline pale and flickering like candlelight. Paranormal investigators visiting the site recorded voices on tape, soft giggles, the sound of chalk scraping across a board, and a woman's voice saying, "Class dismissed." Some visitors find children's handprints appearing in the dust along the walls, only to fade moments later. Articles and local lore mention the site often during Wisconsin's haunted tours, recounting strange lights in the upper hallway and motion detectors triggered in empty rooms. Even police reports note neighbors calling about shadows in the windows. Though the building has been locked and abandoned for years, now the school sits in silence, surrounded by weeds and broken fences, its bell tower still reaching toward the clouds. And sometimes, as evening fog rolls in, the faint clang of a school bell drifts through the air, soft, distant, and chillingly familiar. If you heard it, would you look up or run before the last bell rings again? 10. Hearthstone Historic House Museum, Appleton, perched on a quiet bluff overlooking the Fox River. Hearthstone Historic House Museum looks like a peaceful Victorian dream. But inside its walls, light flickers not just from electricity. Built in 1882, it was the first home in the world to be illuminated by a hydroelectric power system designed by Thomas Edison. Yet, since that day, the house has carried a strange charge of its own. Visitors often describe a heaviness in the air, as if static hums just beneath the skin. Tour guides have seen lamps flicker even when the electrical current is steady, and more than one guest has sworn that the lights pulse softly in rhythm with unseen footsteps. During a late-night restoration years ago, a volunteer claimed he saw a woman in period clothing glide past the staircase only to vanish before reaching the landing. Others report the faint scent of perfume drifting through empty rooms, or a cold breath against their necks when they stand near the parlor fireplace. Local news features and historical journals have documented the home's eerie reputation, noting how paranormal investigators captured unexplainable fluctuations in electromagnetic readings and whisper-like voices on tape. One investigator wrote that the energy in the house feels alive, responsive, almost intelligent. Hearthstone's staff even hosts candlelight tours every Halloween, where the air seems to hum louder as the night deepens. Maybe it's just the electricity still coursing through 19th century wires. Or perhaps it's something else that refuses to fade. When the lights dim and the house falls silent, is it Edison's power still running, or the spirits who first lived by it still drawn to their everlasting glow? 11. Heritage Hills State Historical Park, Green Bay, Aloes. When dusk falls over the reconstructed cabins, old law offices, Fort Howard's walls, and country homes of Heritage Hills State Historical Park. The park's usual bustle dissolves into a heavy, unnatural quiet. Lanterns cast long, trembling shadows across paths between 19th century buildings. The air quivers with expectation, like the past is inhaling. You cross the grounds, past old kitchens, sheriff's offices, and fur trade cabins, and you feel eyes tracking you, though no one is there. Guides and night visitors tell of footsteps echoing inside empty buildings long after closing. A caretaker once heard a stern voice call, "Stop in Fort Howard's guardhouse," even though the lights were off and the hall deserted. Others report cold spots so sharp they felt like icy fingers brushing their skin while walking between the historic houses. Some say in the fortress section, the figure of a soldier patrols at twilight, vanishing when you turn to follow. In one winter evening, an EVP electronic voice phenomenon recording caught the name Foster whispered over static. One news story recounted how one of Brown County's earliest murders at Fort Howard in 1832 has fueled ghost lore for nearly 2 centuries. Historical accounts say Lieutenant Amos Foster was shot by Private Patrick Doyle inside the fort. And Heritage Hill staff now believe Foster's spirit may roam the site. Reports include unexplained electromagnetic spikes in restored buildings and temperature fluctuations in rooms tied to old jail cells or guard quarters. The park itself promotes paranormal investigation nights to the public, inviting brave souls to explore its shadowed nooks under moonlight as you step past the Cotton House. Past the old law office, the lantern above you pulses, then dims. Who walks these grounds now when the past collides with the living? Could the lieutenant still stand guard in the dusk? Watching history repeat itself, waiting for someone to hear his final command. Orpheum Theater, Madison. From the moment you step onto State Street and glance up at the marquee of Vidic, Orpheum Theater, the building seems to hum with history, and perhaps more. As dusk folds into night, the theater's ornate facade darkens. Yet inside, something stirs. Velvet curtains droop, shadows cling to corners, and the hush feels tense, as though every seat is waiting. Staff and visitors alike have reported the faint jingle of keys, footsteps pacing corridors, though no one is there. Legend says a head usher once tumbled from the balcony and met his end. Patrons claim they've seen a solitary figure seated beneath the upper gallery, only for it to vanish when they look again. Some nights, projectionists whisper of Pete, a former projection booth worker who is said to have taken his own life in the dark chamber. He's rumored to move film reels, flick light switches, and whisper into ears of unsuspecting late-night workers. One housekeeper felt a breath on her neck in the projection room, then heard plates crash in the lobby below. Others speak of voices murmuring from empty boxes and chandelier crystals tinkling in empty halls. Reports in local entertainment magazines and ghost tour write-ups frequently name Orpheum among Madison's most haunted sites. Features tell how overnight staff have recorded disembodied laughter, sudden temperature drops, and lights flickering in perfect timing with footsteps, or so it seems to those who linger. The theater even makes guest appearances in haunted venues lists, with guides leading candlelit ghost walks through its aisles. Tonight, sit quietly in the dimmed auditorium. What if, in the dark, you glimpse a silhouette drifting across the stage, or hear someone call your name from the projection booth? Will you dare to look back? 13. Maxwell Mansion, Lake Geneva. A pale moonlight spills over the white columns and ornate trim of Madame Maxwell Mansion, casting long, wavering shadows across its manicured gardens. Built in 1855 by Dr. Philip Maxwell, the mansion was designed to stand as a monument to his wealth and ambition. But tonight, the grandeur feels fragile, as if the walls themselves are listening. The wind sighs through the trees, and somewhere inside, the floorboards shift with attention. A guest once reported waking in the Grant suite to see a small figure at the foot of the bed, a boy, translucent, silent before he darted away into the corridor. In that same room, objects have shifted overnight, and walls throb with a faint pressure, as if someone leans just behind them. Staff say they smell cigar smoke where none should be, hear disembodied footsteps pacing the halls, and glimpse shadowy shapes in mirrors one night. An employee walking down the corridor looked up to see a ghostly face peering out of a darkened window, but then vanish. Others speak of strange sounds in the attic whispers, creaking pipes, and a whistle so faint it halts the blood in your veins. In ghost tour write-ups and local legends, Maxwell Mansion is often among Lake Geneva's most haunted properties. Tales persist of Danny, a boy who died of scarlet fever, whose spirit tugs at clothing, blows whistles, or appears in children's portraits, even if the photograph was taken with no child present. Investigators on the Lake Geneva Ghost Walk have recorded unexplained electronic interference, orbs drifting down the staircase, and footsteps in empty rooms. The mansion boasts a speakeasy in its lower level, once a surgical suite of Dr. Maxwell. Some claim that residual energy lingers in those walls, amplifying the paranormal. The lights hum overhead. A door creaks shut upstairs. In the dim hall, you half see a boy's silhouette at the far end. Is it Danny? Or an echo of a child who never left if you linger until midnight? Will you hear his whisper or feel his breath behind you? Mud 14. Greunke's First Street Inn, Bayfield. The moonlight spills across the weathered clapboard of Greunke's First Street Inn. Its windows reflecting ghostly glimmers that seem too restless to be mere reflections. Built in the late 1800s, the inn once served travelers, fishermen, and lumbermen. But over the years, it has acquired a reputation darker than its paint, a reputation of whispers behind closed doors and footsteps echoing through corridors long after lights were cut. Guests checking in report doors creaking open on their own. The soft smell of perfume in the hall at 2A, and the sense of someone standing just behind their bed, only to vanish when they turn. In one room, a guest awoke to the brushing sound of hair being stroked, though no one was visible. Another traveler saw a pale figure, female, drifting slowly along the hallway of the second floor before slipping through a wall. Staff say the old bar in the lobby, once the social center, occasionally resonates with phantom laughter, as though unseen patrons linger for one more round. A local ghost tour pamphlet describes how investigative teams detected sudden electromagnetic spikes in the inn's lower rooms readings that jump without explanation, and recorded unearthly voices calling names no one acknowledges. Tour guides sometimes lead guests into the cellar, once used for storage, where footsteps echo even though no one is allowed in after dark. Several paranormal websites now list Greunke's among Wisconsin's top haunted inns, citing persistent legends of Irene, a former resident who may still roam the halls. As the corridors settle into silence, your flashlight beam wavers. Do you dare lean closer to the walls and call out a name, only to hear one whisper back behind you? 15. Octagon House, Fond du Lac. At the corner of Linden Street in Fond du Lac stands the Octagon House. Kit, a peculiar, eight-sided mansion that seems to defy the ordinary laws of symmetry and silence alike. Built in 1856 by Isaac Brown, a Civil War veteran and abolitionist, the home was designed with secret passages, hidden stairwells, and escape routes for the Underground Railroad. But some say the house hides more than history. It hides the echoes of those who never truly left. Visitors who tour the house often describe a strange heaviness, as if the air thickens when they climb the narrow spiral stairs. A volunteer once reported hearing a woman humming an old hymn from an empty parlor. When she followed the sound, it stopped abruptly, and all she found was the faint scent of lavender. Others claimed to see flickering lights in the basement tunnel, believed to have sheltered runaway slaves, though no electricity runs there. A child visiting on a school trip said she saw a man in a blue coat smiling at her from behind a doorway, but no one else saw him. Articles and local documentaries about Wisconsin's haunted heritage often include Octagon House, citing recorded voices, sudden cold drafts, and photographs with strange mists forming human-like shapes. Paranormal groups who've investigated the site mention EVP recordings of whispers saying, "Help me," and "Go back," and motion sensors triggered in sealed rooms. During one public tour, the guide's flashlight flickered out just as someone or something whispered her name. The Octagon House remains open to visitors, still proud of its abolitionist past, and yet, after dark, the house feels alive, listening. So when you step into its narrow halls and feel a gentle breath brush your cheek, will you tell yourself it's just the wind? Or admit that the walls are still guarding their ghosts? The night grows still, yet the stories never end.
Can you hear us?
Across Wisconsin, the lights still flicker in empty rooms, and the wind still carries faint music over silent lakes. Perhaps these are just echoes of memory, or perhaps the past is still alive, waiting for someone to listen. So tell me, when you visit Wisconsin, will you dare to walk these halls alone? Because sometimes the state of 1,000 lakes hides 1,000 restless souls.